Xbox controllers can start to get a little bit expensive. Just check out our roundup of some of our favorites up here in the corner, but that doesn't always necessarily have to be the case. Today, we're looking at the brand new HyperX Clutch Gladiate, which is a wired controller, but coming in at just $35. And with some premium features like 2 programmable buttons on the back and adjustable trigger pulls, there are quite a few things to like here. We first caught a glimpse of this controller at CES this year, but now it's ready to launch. So let's dive in and take a closer look. Thanks for watching 9 to 5 Toys. Be sure to like, subscribe, and enable notifications with the bell icon so you don't miss any upcoming videos. Hey everyone, I'm Jordan with 9 to 5 Toys. Now, HyperX has come out with some other controllers in the past, even in the Clutch lineup. The Clutch Wireless was released in 2020 and came with a little clip for mobile devices, had Bluetooth connectivity as well as a 2.4 gigahertz connector, but it did not work with Xbox. So fast forward to 2023, we have the new HyperX Clutch Gladiate, which is meant for Xbox. You can see the Xbox symbol right here in the middle, and it's also a wired controller and also more affordable at that $35 price point. And besides the name, there really isn't a whole lot else in common between these two controllers. Taking a look at the overall design, the shape and dimensions of the Clutch Gladiate are reminiscent of the standard Xbox Series X controller. On top, we see all the same buttons, including the new share button here in the middle. On the back, things start to get a little bit more interesting with those 2 programmable buttons, which are labeled as P2 and P3, as well as the 2 adjustable switches for the triggers. And you can see those are labeled 1 and 2, and they do shorten up the trigger pull there. In between the switches for the 2 triggers is a P1 button, and that's what's used for mapping the back buttons. And when it comes to comfort, because of that very similar shape, if you're a fan of the standard Xbox Series X controller, you'll also be a fan of this one. It's very similar. They really didn't stray too far from the stock controller, unlike Razer did with the Wolverine V2 Chroma. They did something a little bit different, try to make it a little bit more comfortable in their eyes, but HyperX has kept it very close to the stock layout here. There's a slightly textured material on the underside of the grips. It doesn't wrap around as much on the front like the Clutch Wireless or the Elite Series 2, but it's right where I want there to be some extra grip for gaming. And that textured grip goes all the way from the bottom of the controller up to the top where the triggers are. Additionally, thanks to its lack of batteries, it's also very lightweight as well, coming in at just under 200 grams. So that makes it easy to use for longer gaming sessions. And the included detachable cable is about 9.5 feet long. And thanks to that familiar, natural grip, the buttons on the back here for me are just like perfectly placed. I don't have to modify my grip at all to actuate them, unlike some other controllers like the Wolverine V2 from Razer. The Gladiate's back buttons have a satisfying click, and they aren't too hard or too light to press. And for the affordable nature of this controller, I feel that HyperX really nailed the button placement and feel. The back buttons are a little bit louder and maybe don't sound as premium, I guess, as something like the Elite Series 2 or the Wolverine V2 from Razer. But once again, for that $35 price point, having them positioned perfectly here and being a very affordable controller, I can't complain too much about that. Mapping those back buttons is very simple as well. It doesn't require any extra software. So with the controller plugged in, there is a light right above the share button here that will illuminate. So all you have to do is hold the P1 button, which is this one up here in the middle, until that light starts flashing slowly. And that will let you know that it's in the mapping mode. So with that slowly flashing, you press the button that you want to map. So like if I'm gonna map my jump, if I'm playing an FPS game, I would hit A, and then the light will start blinking a little bit faster, and then you choose which back button you want to map it to. So for me, I would push P2 and map it to that one. I typically only use the back buttons on controllers when playing FPS games, so I usually map them to jump and crouch. And now let's move on to the other adjustable feature on here, the triggers. The full trigger pull feels similar to the standard Xbox Series X controller. It is slightly shorter though. Flipping the adjustment switch cuts the trigger pull roughly in half. It's not a hair trigger like that of the SCUF Instinct Pro, but it is significantly shorter for those who want a quicker response when gaming. The face buttons don't look quite as premium as the stock controller or like the SCUF Instinct Pro. Those have a little bit more of a nice 3D depth to them for a really cool look. The face buttons of the Clutch Gladiate are simple with a similar sound and feel to the stock controller buttons. They've worked perfectly fine, and so far I haven't had any issues with actuation, unlike the Elite Series 2 controller, but they aren't quite as satisfying to press as the clicky Razer Wolverine V2 Chroma switches. The sticks that are on the Clutch Gladiate look and feel very similar to the stock Xbox Series X controller. Same textured ring kind of around it. It feels like the same distance of movement, same resistance as well. So while I can't necessarily comment on the long-term reliability of the sticks and if it will develop stick drift over time like a lot of other controllers usually do, so far it feels fine to me and is performing pretty well even in the gamepad test on a PC. When connected to a PC, the gamepad test is a decent way to test for stick drift. On the Clutch Gladiate, the left stick didn't snap back on one axis as close to 0 as the right stick, but it was still a lower number than the stock Xbox controller, and in use, I didn't notice any issues. With that in mind though, one thing to note is that the Razer Wolverine V2 performed better than both of these controllers. The D-pad is the only part of the controller that feels a little bit mushy and maybe subpar when compared to the standard controller. So depending on what type of games you play and how often you use that might be a concern to you. For me, in the games that I usually play, that's not really a big issue for me. So overall, wrapping up here, at just $35, the HyperX Clutch Gladiate does seem like a really solid option for those who want a little bit more out of their Xbox controller but don't want to pay a ton of money. Its simple, lightweight nature with the perfect placement of the back buttons makes it an easy recommendation for me. Of course, you could go with a standard Xbox wireless controller for $60, or we often see those for less on sale. Stay locked to 9to5toys.com to make sure you're getting all those deals. But if you want a little bit more out of your controller and you don't mind the wire, then the HyperX Clutch Gladiate is a great option. All right, and that'll wrap it up for our review. Let us know what you think about it down in the comments below. And if you're looking for some other videos to watch, I'll link to our roundup of controllers as well as our most recent video. And thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up so others can find it easier, and consider subscribing. This is Jordan with 9to5 Toys.